Buckle your pants and get ready for a wild ride, ladies and gentlemen, because we're exploring the origins of Schmidt Times today. Now let's not waste another second and dive right into it. The channel officially launched on July 1st, 2017, but I started entertaining the idea of content creation way back in the summer of 2016. That was a couple months after graduating from my scriptwriting program, which saw me leave the big city of Ottawa for one last placement at my hometown's tourist center in the intensive job hunt to follow. My goal was to become a narrative designer after those courses and the preceding 3 years of game development, but I also got a taste for video editing in my last semester and indulged in a few film-based projects before my departure. If nothing else, I can say the channel's beginnings were most assuredly humble. All I settled on when I started picking away at it during my shift's quiet hours was that my obsession with time was going to be at the heart of my channel's branding, and that I wanted to tackle a Let's Play series of Undertale since I didn't have a chance to play through it with someone before I skedaddled back to the village. The first thing I started working on, though, was intros and outros for a variety of concepts. My subscription to the Adobe Creative Suite was coming to its end, and I needed to squeeze out as many assets as I could muster before I'd lose access. That ultimately just served as practice, though, since I only used what I made during that hustle for a couple of months. At the time, I planned for Game Time to be the catalyst for LPs, Twine Time was going to be a similar show with a focus on interactive fiction, Talk Time would be an unscripted vlog of sorts covering different gaming topics, and Top Time would tackle traditional lists that counted up to 12 instead of down from 10. If you're a long-time viewer, you'll know that Top Time was the only one that turned out as intended. Talk Time was promptly scripted after I realized I'd need a lot of practice to deliver improvised discussions. LPs were traded out for more editing-intensive projects, and Twine Time never saw the light of day. You could say Schmidt Times died before it even began that summer. I lost the reason I intended to record my Undertale LP, and the ScreenFlow proved to be a lackluster alternative to Premiere Pro after my subscription expired. It might have been okay on decent hardware, but my laptop was the worst. Guaranteeing large file sizes were impossible to load. I realized two things from that trial run, though. If I was going to try again and actually upload content, it needed to be an intrinsically motivated initiative, and I needed to do it right with the Creative Cloud. No half measures. All in. That wasn't a commitment I was entirely ready to invest in, so I put Schmidt Times on the back burner to prioritize job hunting and practicing narrative design. The channel was never far from my mind, but I think the big turning point for me came in January of 2017 when Telltale opened the floodgates for creative workshop applications. After a few months of dedicated portfolio building and rejection letters, I looked at that opportunity as my big chance to get my foot in the door. But after sending off my submission and seeing someone on Twitter get accepted with no word back on my end, reality kinda sunk in. To say I was a little disappointed would be an understatement. It was tough to get past the fact that I was likely being rejected for what was no doubt the lowest barrier to entry I had any hope of finding on my intended career path. Which is a crushing blow when you've burned through 4 years of post-secondary in its pursuit. It was while I drifted through that particular cloud of fog when I watched a video from a PokeTuber who will remain nameless. The content looked and sounded lazy, and it seemed clear that they didn't respect their viewers' time or even had passion for the craft. Suffice it to say, inspiration struck. When the rejection letter from Telltale finally arrived, it hit hard, but I had padding to soften the blow. The first episode of Top Time was already in pre-production, and I didn't have time to dwell. The channel quickly proved to be a wise investment for morale alone. It combined my passion for video games with my love of writing and video editing, and I knew I had the work ethic to see videos through with a consistent schedule and do the subject matter justice. The only problem was my laptop. I already had enough experience with it to know it handled footage horribly, so I decided to work within my limitations and adapt an editing style akin to game theory. Limited footage and a lot of 2D layers. That was definitely the right call because it helped build an identity for my content. I wanted to create dense videos that folks would actively watch instead of just putting on as background noise. If I could entice someone to watch, I'd be pleased, but if I could get someone to view something twice to catch all the references, well, I'd be over the moon. It all started to click once I got to work, too. That isn't to say it went smoothly though, far from it. I don't think I could overstate just how garbage my laptop happened to be, but since I was eating away my savings to keep the career search alive and already splurged on a Creative Cloud subscription to produce content in earnest, I didn't have the budget to fix that. The amount of time I spent just sitting there watching my mouse teleport around the timeline was ridiculous. If Premiere crashed or my laptop froze, it'd mean at least an hour of rebooting to retry with whatever progress was retained. Saving was also a gamble, since sometimes that'd prove too strenuous and prompt a freeze. Corruption ran rampant, and I'd clone out my projects daily to ensure losses were minimal. Sometimes input would freeze during playback, and I'd have to sit through a static 10 minutes of audio while the computer struggled to catch up. Let me tell you folks, the amount of tears I shed staring at a blank monitor could fill a couple pictures. But that's how I knew my interest in content creation was the real deal. No one struggles that much without an intense passion for the craft, and that ordeal definitely should have pushed me to quit. I'd turn off my timer during extensive slowdowns and crashes, and despite that, some of my earliest works took upwards of 90 hours to complete. Every video was a labor of love, and I try to continue that trend today, just dramatically shorter. I really poured everything I had into the channel, but I heeded the advice of creators that came before me. There's no overnight successes in game development without a lot of work behind the scenes, and the same would hold true for YouTube. I'd invest hundreds of hours into a video wholeheartedly expecting it to be a flop. I didn't care though. I'd share my passion whether or not anyone cared to watch it. If I built a community and connected with people, that'd be swell and certainly validate my efforts. But just having a collection of works that I could revisit was enough for me. What mattered the most during those months though was that video production fueled me and proved crucial for distracting myself from the overwhelming anxiety of continuously failing to find footing in my field. Funny enough, gathering footage for game time helped me relax too. If it wasn't already clear, I'm something of a workaholic. Whether it be scooping up consistently stellar scores in my classes or pouring energy into personal projects, I invested a lot of my time into working. If my nose wasn't pressed against the grindstone, I'd feel an intense guilt that would sully my attempts at leisure. So I made playing games into work and was able to rationalize fun as a necessity for the channel. Quick disclaimer, that's not a very healthy motivation. I still haven't put out a Breath of the Wild video, but recording my sessions in anticipation for when I would really helped me unwind. Once my bank account was running on empty and my dreams were dead, I had to make the leap back to Ottawa while I could still afford to leave and take whatever job I could get to buy myself more time. Whatever I'd find out there though, I knew my weekly upload schedule would be unsustainable with less hours to dedicate to videos. So I proactively devised a series that could be easier to produce when my time was cut short. As you might have guessed, God a Minute was my answer. My inspiration for the format actually came from a channel called Tokyosaurus. That fellow publishes Japanese news videos, and the editing style was just simple images in motion with transitions applied. I thought adapting a similar approach would grant me faster turnaround times, and it kinda started like that, but like everything I introduced to the channel, I have a bad habit of going overboard on the editing. I ultimately settled on the series being like taking a rank at a top time and uploading it in isolation with wipes to clear scenes. My move warranted the adjustment to my content strategy, but it introduced some new challenges. Back in my hometown, I had a makeshift recording space in my basement. It wasn't well insulated for recording, and I had to keep my voice down to avoid triggering my chipper puppy upstairs, but it did the trick. But I moved in with 5 strangers when I took my blind leap back to Ottawa, and noise pollution was at an all-time high. Opportunities to record were few and far between, and my anxiety would skyrocket whenever I was midway through a session and I heard a door handle jiggle. Fortunately, a close friend of mine not only lent me his laptop, which I'll always appreciate immensely for securing the channel's future, but he also let me record narration at his place. For optimal sound quality, I'd record sitting on a paint can in a cramped closet. Those were the days. The Schmidt saga ushered in new heights and lows from there, but getting my hands on that old Diablo device and moving into that townhouse was definitely the beginning of a new chapter for the channel. But that, valued viewer, is a tale for another time. Hey there, pal. Thanks for watching. I tackled this video to celebrate the channel's 1,000 subscriber milestone, but expect to see this format again. Whether or not you enjoy the presentation on display here, be sure to let me know in the comments below. I'll be sure to factor your feedback into future productions.